So I thought to do something different. I thought I'd have a whole episode specialized talking about what concerts I saw this year. I know in a previous episode, I talked about what shows I'm gearing up to see next year that I have tickets for already, and then some shows that I'm up in the air about. I thought I should kind of give maybe a recap episode of what shows I saw in 2025. In 2025, I saw six different shows throughout the year. Not as many as previous years, but I just tried to be kind of more picky choosy as, prices go up and, the cost of, things of like, travel and if I have to get a hotel or not and gas and food and all these things. All these play a factor when I'm, making up the rules as I go along. So it's not an exact set in stone thing, I should say. But, and I think a lot of people don't understand that just because what was it? I'll use AC/DC as an example. Somebody was looking at their tour dates for next year and they were like, well, why are they not playing, Chicago or Detroit? It's kind of surprising. And I'm like, well, they just played there last spring. So it's like, unless there's like crazy demand, most musicians and comedians, etc., they don't come back to a city. I mean, they do have the repeat date of Vegas, but that's kind of very much its own thing. I say that kind of makes sense. I could see, maybe New York or LA as like, the other one that I could have seen being, getting another date possibly. But that's, kind of an outlier, but most times it's like you're just trying to hit different markets and sometimes, places you haven't ever been. So just to kind of switch things up. Anyway, I've talked enough about that. Look at my list of concerts that I've seen this year. Anyway, started off the year in May and I saw Randy's Cheeseburger Picnic with a couple of my friends. And this was just at a local bar in my town. He had been there, I think, like 6 years ago. Randy's Cheeseburger Picnic, if you do not know, it's the character of Randy from Trailer Park Boys. His real name is Pat Roach, but he's a very funny guy. I thought his stand-up was, pretty decent. I'd never seen any of his stuff before. It was a very fun, kind of different show than I had ever been to, I'd say, because it was, he had the stand-up stuff and then really great stories from the show, behind the scenes kind of things, and a lot of good heartfelt moments. And then there was a lot of good, Q&A and fan interaction, kind of little giveaway things. And the Big Belly contest was very funny. I thought that was very on brand. It's just been something special, I guess, for like most of my friends because so many of us over the years, probably since like I'd say senior year of high school for sure, but maybe even like a little bit of junior year, most of us guys kind of like came together and talked about, Trailer Park Boys. And that seemed like most of a thing that the guys in my class had in common was like Trailer Park Boys and stuff. Even before I kind of knew what was what with that or was totally aware of the show, people were dressing up as characters from that. And I thought it was really fun. And now having seen the show, I look back on that with a lot more fondness, I guess. I wish maybe I could have been along, for the ride or kind of in on the joke of them, dressing up as like, Bubbles and Mr. Leahy and Julian. But anyway, really solid show. I did watch all 14 seasons in a week and a half because I remember in September of 2019, I binged that and literally I did nothing but I come home and just watch Trailer Park Boys like it was, like a full-time 9 to 5 job. So I will never do that again because one of my friends said he's like, it's meant to be sipped and enjoyed, not binge drank. And I was like, well, I just, kind of chugged all of the show. So it happens, I guess. The second show I saw Katy Perry's The Lifetimes Tour. I saw this in Minneapolis at the Target Center. Rebecca Black opened. I could honestly kind of care less for her set. She's probably one of my least favorite opening acts that I've ever seen. I don't know. It kind of seemed like it all ran together, her set. Like I know everything was kind of running behind that night because I remember being in the lobby for that show and stuff before the doors opened, but you could still wait inside the lobby. Then I think it was almost like 2 hours we were standing around for doors to open because I think there were some issues with safety things with the stage, probably like the fire marshal doing like inspections or something. I heard that, and then I heard possibly just some of the trucks like getting there late and stuff, something like that. What was I gonna say? But yeah, I don't know. So that was kind of a whole like fiasco. I mean, I didn't sweat it, but I was just kind of still wondering if the show was even gonna go on or not. And it's, it kind of was a bigger thing than I thought it should have been. I mean, of like the doors and all that stuff. I'd never had that happen before. That was a first. I was just glad you've already been there and, not been in such a long line out the door and stuff because, it was a quite a warm day that day for May, and I was kind of just glad to already be inside the arena. Anyway, but once doors finally opened, it seemed like it just kind of happened so fast, and in like maybe like 5 minutes or so, Rebecca Black was already on stage. So yeah, so that was something. And I don't know. She, I'm sure she had less time for her set than normal because of that, but kind of could care less because the only song I ever knew by her, to be honest, is Friday. But that came out, what, probably 16 years ago or something like that. It's been a minute, and to be honest, I haven't really heard her do, much else and whatever. So, and it didn't seem like really many people around me really cared for what she was doing either. It kind of just seemed like it's kind of came and went. So I don't know. The other thing is too is that I, couldn't totally make out always like what she was singing and understand exactly. And then also too for the design of Katy Perry's stage, it was, an infinity sign, which is cool. But at that point, like Rebecca Black, I don't think could reach where I was exactly because trying to explain this the best way I can. I was at like the other end of the arena, essentially on the floor. I wasn't in one of the, pits in the center. So that was that. So she was kind of far away because I think they had like the parts of like the runway or whatever that fully connected like the figure eight, like not like going. So she was just kind of at the main part of the stage only. So she was back a ways. Anyway, it kind of seemed like it happened, real fast. Like once, she was on and everything just kind of went through like nothing. And then it didn't take too long for Katy to come on. And honestly, I thought it was a really good show. It wasn't, like my ideal, like if I was, picking the show design or the set list, but that would be, a total nitpick, obviously. But I thought it was a really solid show. And I mean, I know Katy had been getting a lot of heat for different things this year of example like the space flight thing, which really wasn't technically even in space. It was just kind of like to the edge of the atmosphere. So it's just kind of you have like a weird thing to where it was like the public was already not very happy with her with her working with Dr. Luke again and a couple of other things. But the thing with the Dr. Luke thing is that could have been contract related with her record company, and she might not have had a choice. That's kind of what it's seeming like from what I've heard. I don't know that for a fact, but of the rumblings I've heard, it kind of seemed that way. And that's, I don't think that's right. Yes, did make a lot of, good songs. And I mean, and obviously, Teenage Dream album and all these other, things from the past, but, other things he did, I can understand why you wouldn't want to be associated with him. So I get that, but I don't think that will ever happen again because I can see that she's learned a lot from this moment, and Band-Aid, the song Band-Aids kind of seems to reflect that. Anyway, back to the show. I thought it was interesting that she did like kind of like a video game kind of design for her show, but I thought it was very fitting to kind of try to beat the system and beat AI and beat the internet. So I thought it felt, very fitting for the time. Maybe it's kind of been here, done that with some other shows and maybe some other like concept albums and things. I thought it was a little out of place, like with the themes of her album, because her album didn't really seem to have like a ton of themes to it or anything like that. So I think it would have been kind of more on brand if she could have done something related to her album maybe more. But I don't know what you would really do because it wasn't like it was Teenage Dream, and it wasn't like to where it was Prism and Pyramid and ancient Egyptian related. So I don't know exactly what else you would have done because I think there are some good songs like off of Lifetimes. Clearly, I really love the title track, and then I think All the Love is great. Anyway, I thought it was pretty decent set list overall. I think she played almost about everything I would have wanted to hear, and this is another nitpick, but I wish she would have played more of One of the Boys or something like that. My ideal thing would have been for her to play like the albums in full or almost, because she's got what, like 5 albums I think now. But that kind of would have been my more ideal for her to do. But again, too, is I don't know what diehards would really want to see like a 4-hour Katy Perry show, but I would have liked it. But And I thought, the acoustic segment was kind of cool with like the fans picking that, but that's, kind of got to be totally pre-programmed just to hit, a Teenage Dream album song because I'd seen, other dates on the tour for, in the US and it was always kind of like the same thing. So it kind of makes it seem like it's, more fan choice than it is for that, just because like one, the internet didn't really work, for scanning the QR codes and nobody else's phones, cooperated with them to be able to even vote for that. Because Katie's like, you vote. And then it's like, no. But anyway, it was going to end up being the one that got away anyway, which, is a great song. If I had my choice, I'd rather have it be Thinking of You. I like that better, and I think, that should have been a bigger hit in my opinion, but I thought that was great. And I thought it's been really cool at the shows too that she was, bringing a fan on stage for that moment, mainly obviously like, kids and stuff. So I think that's really cool for connecting like that. I think she got a lot more hate than she really deserved this year, that she really got put through the ringer. I can see that it's like maybe how she acts and handles things sometimes maybe comes off a little bit awkward to the rest of us just because, most of the population that's, not famous, not rich, and not in a, position like she is. And I don't know. So I think it's, an interesting thing. But I thought it was cool that she put together, basically a greatest hits type tour. I could really see, from the Olivia Rodrigo Guts tour and from Taylor Swift, the Eras tour, where she was kind of, getting her influences from, just because I saw like, TikToks of like comparing like the things, but it's just like, but pretty much all entertainers do that. They steal little aspects here and there to where like another example I'll give of this is like, Kiss and Motley Crue have used like the same, like lighting companies and they've had like the same kind of, lifts, hydraulic lifts and things, or like Travis Scott used the same stuff that, Tommy Lee did. So it's, kind of all goes back and forth. I think they just see, people just see what they like and pull the best elements from that. But I think that makes for a great show. It really does. Maybe you don't brainstorm everything exactly yourself, but it's like how you put those elements to use, I think, because there's a saying like good artists copy, great artists steal, I don't really consider that, stealing totally if you use like a, hydraulic lift or maybe this effect with the confetti or like a specific lighting thing. I don't know. I think it's just, taking the best elements that you can and putting them into the show to try to make the best show you can. And I think that's what every artist should do. And I think, most artists try to do, some kind of stand there more than others, but they're fans too, so it's like, why don't they also do what they like or what they would like to see if they were in the crowds? That's been, always been my thought. I might do maybe more of a deep dive specifically of the, these concerts, like breaking them down kind of eventually, but this is trying to kind of be like a roll in all, kind of rolling all of 2025 concerts, together. But anyway, overall, I thought, it was a good show. I enjoyed it. I've always liked Katie, and I still do like Katie. I think that Smile should have been a better album than it was. I thought Lifetimes was kind of, it had some things, but I still don't think that Smile or Lifetimes were as bad as Witness. I still really do not like Witness. I know for a lot of Katy Perry fans, that was kind of like, kind of like the last album that they really liked by her. But I don't know. I just did not really care for it. And that was kind of just like the drop off for her. It just makes me wonder what she's going to have to do to get back in, the good graces of the public, because I'm sure she will always tour and do, shows and things. But I don't see her ever being on the level that she got to with, Teenage Dream, and Prism was, also huge too. I just don't know what it's going to take to ever do that. I personally would love if she ever did like a, another pop punk kind of album, kind of more in the style of One of the Boys. Cause that's really underrated in my opinion, that her debut is not really talked about a lot. Like, yeah, everybody talks about I Kissed a Girl, and obviously you have Hot and Cold on there, but like all these other like kind of more deep tracks on that album are very, very good too. Anyway, so I was glad to finally see Katy Perry. She's definitely a bucket list artist that I had, been wanting to see for a long time. And, it was quite a haul to get there and back, but it was worth it. And I really enjoyed being in Minneapolis again. I've been there a couple of other times, and great city, very cool. And my hotel was in walking distance from the show. It was literally like a 3-minute walk. So that was probably like the easiest time, like getting, back and forth from a show, and I would do that again, to be honest. It was just great. I really enjoyed that a lot. So if I ever see a show in Minneapolis, I will stay at that hotel again. Then the second show I saw this year was also in May, on May 22nd at the Epic Event Center in Green Bay. I saw the Pretty Reckless and the Struts open for them. The Pretty Reckless I've been wanting to see for a long time. Again, another bucket list thing, and I talked about them and Taylor Momsen in a previous episode, but very talented, really good music. I think she's just well spoken, when she just talks about like how passionate she is about rock and roll and music in general, and of her time, stepping away from being an actress, then, really working on her band to hone their craft and be taken seriously, because a lot of people, didn't take her seriously right out of the gate, because it's like, oh, Cindy Lou Who, or it's like, oh, Gossip Girl, is gonna have a, band and stuff, but they kick ass. So I hope I will be seeing them again. I will be seeing them open for AC/DC next year. But anyway, I was really glad to see them live. Good show. I say good show, not a great show, just because, like, again, gonna nitpick, but is that one, they only played for about an hour, or maybe barely over that. That, in my opinion, I always feel like if you have a headline show, you should play for at least an hour and a half. That's just always been my opinion. It just makes me feel like it's, worthwhile more for the, travel and stuff and everything. And that, there were several songs that they, still could have played that were, fairly big hits, I would say. I can't think of them off the top of my head now, but if I think about that, I will go back and look at what their set list was from that show. Again, it was good, but they could have played more, could have done more. In a dream scenario, I would have them play, all of Death by Rock and Roll, like the whole album, because I think it's great. I think it's, perfect front to back. I wouldn't change a thing. But I know, unless it was a specific, tour or special show doing that's not going to happen. I don't know. There were, like I said, just some songs missing that really, should have been played. I know you can't always get what you ask, what you wish for, and that, no band ever is going to play every single song they have. Even, if you were doing an Eras tour type thing, even Taylor Swift could not play all of her stuff, because when you just amount such a, massive catalog, you can't play it all. People would be there for days. You can't do that. So I it makes it hard to pick and choose, but I guess I just, kind of complain about this, like the length of their show, because again, with it being a headline show, they should play longer. And two, it seemed like it was mostly the same set list that they played opening for AC/DC. So that's kind of why I complain about that a little bit. But the opening band, I will say too, was very good as well. An all-girl band called Plush. I believe they started in Albany, New York, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I think, at least like the main girl is, from there and stuff. Anyway, very talented. I was really glad to see them. I've been following them on Instagram for several years, but they, never really played anywhere close for me to be able to see them. They did open for Disturbed maybe in like the winter of January of 2024, I believe, but I only know like a few Disturbed songs. They are a band that I wouldn't mind to see one day, but they weren't like really at the top of the list for me as it sits right now. Anyway, Plush, very talented. All the girls are around my age, so it's very cool to see, some of these rock bands like them, or, Greta Van Fleet, for example. Like Greta Van Fleet, those guys are older than me. But anyway, it's very cool to see musicians like around my age, and be representing, and to where like maybe someday they will be the greats. Maybe, they will be like the next Heart, or maybe like the next like Runaways type thing. I'm just, thinking of girl specific bands, yes, I want them to be the first great Plush. I'm just saying, like, I think they could really be something. I think they are very talented. I don't know exactly what's going on there with all their stuff, because since they're one, guitarist left, not too long after I saw them. But regardless, they put on a really good show. They played for probably about, half hour, 45 minutes, I would guess, probably closer to 45. So it was a little bit longer than I figured they would play, but I was really happy because I've been wanting to see them for quite a while. So very good show by them, by both bands, and I'm sure I will see them each again someday. Obviously, pretty reckless I am, and I'm sure I'll see Plush opening for somebody, or hopefully I'd like to catch a headline show there one day. Anyway, third show I saw was on September 25th at the Resch Center in Green Bay. I saw Eric Church Free the Machine tour. He had Marcus King opening for him. I've been wanting to see Eric Church for quite a while too. He was, getting really high on my list just because Eric Church for the last like 2 or 3 years has been, one of my top played artists on Spotify. And I don't know, I think he's a very cool guy, very well spoken, and he just really interests me because it's such a different style to where he has like the kind of rock country thing. I really like that blend so much just because I love both those genres. Like probably country I listen to even more than rock now, but like I like that he kind of goes back and forth with that. But it's very interesting to me is that like you would feel like from the outside looking in, like looking at the Chief and with his shades and the kind of badassness that he has going on for him, that he'd be like a real, like almost like have a real like screaming type voice, almost like like how when Hardy screams on like his couple kind of more rock albums and stuff. I picture that from the outside looking in, that's what he would be like. But most of the time he's kind of just so laid back and chill, which I think is cool and I guess does fit the vibe too, because I don't know, just with like the shades and everything, just like the swagger he has, he almost reminds me of like a more kind of like a country Elvis in a way, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just feel like he kind of just carries that with him, like, cool, man, cool, just like, I don't know. It just, that's the way I see it. But it's, interesting is that most of the time he's just kind of more like soft spoken in his singing. Like he does have, times too to where he's kind of using more of his full range. But, you know, most of it's kind of, quieter and kind of more chiller like, I should say, kind of laid back. But then he does have moments to where he kind of has like the kind of more like raspy kind of type thing, like not on like a Dave Grohl raspy type level, but like closer and it's like raw and rough. But I don't know, it works well for him, what he does. Anyway, I've been listening to him for the last 4 years. I've really gotten into him a lot more. And it was awesome to finally be able to see him live. So I thought overall his newest album, Evangeline versus the Machine, was okay. It has about 3 or 4 good songs. I mean, it only has 8 songs, which is good. Well, I shouldn't say which is good, but it was kind of mediocre. I really like the Heart and Soul thing. He had like quite a few tracks off of that. I don't think that really needed to be a double album. I think it would have been better if he would have just done one good album out of the songs I liked. But it is what it is. But what was it? He starts off the show was kind of that he played the whole Evangeline versus the Machine album in full. So it's like I thought that was cool in a way, but in another way it kind of ate up a little bit of time that could have been used to play a couple more songs that I like, because like what was I gonna say, the song I really wanted to hear him play was Heart on Fire. I really wanted to hear him play that, but again too, I don't make the set lists, obviously. So, maybe this will be another artist to do a dream set list for possibly one day. Not going to get into that now, but I thought it was a pretty solid show overall. And I thought Marcus King as an opener, wasn't bad. He's a really talented guitar player, and I've only really listened to like a few of his songs, to be honest. I've seen him on, a few different podcasts. He had Bert Kreischer had him on a couple of different Bert casts, I believe. Maybe Something's Burning, but anyway, well, he was on like one of the newer Two Bears, One Cave episodes. Anyway, I think he's, real interesting guy to listen to and to hear him share what he's got going on. I don't know. It's just, I just have not really listened to a lot of his music yet. Seeing him live, I should say Marcus King Band, But anyway, I thought, he was okay. Not the worst, not the best I've seen. I just thought it was kind of okay. But I think it was just because how he was mixed. I really could not make out like what his vocal was. The instruments sounded good, but just like the vocal was not mixed very well in my opinion. Because the only song I could really make out clearly was he ended with a cover of Allman Brothers' Ramblin' Man, and that was great. But like the rest of it was kind of like there was a song here or there because that I was like, oh, it's teasing, but it's kind of about it. And then, yeah, after he got done, everything, filled up the rest of the way. From what I could tell, I'd say, if it wasn't sold out, I'd say it was at least like 85% full, because it's hard to tell because there's some empty chairs here or there. And sometimes for, sold out shows, sometimes, not all people that have tickets still show up for that. So you do still see empty seats at sold out shows, or from at least my knowledge. So it's kind of like a weird thing. It's like, I don't know if just like those people got sick or like something else happened or like, oh, we couldn't get a babysitter or something. Just like, you think you'd have that figured out before you know, tried to show up for the concert. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm just making stuff up. I don't know. But anyway, I thought it was decent overall, and it was kind of, interesting, the opening to it and stuff of the show, of kind of the footage that they show, and it seems very fitting now that I get it, because like it's kind of, again, it's Evangeline versus the Machine, so it's kind of like what else is going on in society and like big government kind of stuff, and that footage was kind of interesting. I know he used like a couple of different like Pink Floyd songs, which were just kind of like, okay, I guess. I've never really been a big Pink Floyd person. I think they did, fit the opening well, but I was like, if I was to choose a different song or a different band, I would have done so. But I don't know. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. I was kind of sandwiched between a couple of couples where I was on the floor, so that kind of made it hard, because as like the night went on, like they were kind of bumping into me more as they had some more drinks and stuff, which happens. It's not like they were like horrible or like rude to me or something. I was just like it kind of makes it a little awkward because I'm just there by myself and stuff. And it's actually funny because like the guy next to me, like I think not too long after Eric got done kind of playing the new album and everything, he was like, "Oh, finally a song I know." And I was like, "Yeah, right." And it was one that I didn't know. It ended up being Country Music Jesus, which I added to my Spotify country playlist. I like that a lot now. I didn't know it before that. I know a lot of Eric's stuff, but not everything. But I think that's also cool too, is that you get to experience new songs, for the first time live. It's very cool. Like just going in completely blind like that, I thought was really cool. And I'm sure it will happen with other people I see, because, not everybody that I see I'm gonna know every single song. It does happen and it has happened, but it's kind of nice to be surprised like that. Anyway, I like that. And then the other thing I guess that was kind of a little bit annoying too is that when he was playing the couple of ballads, like one of them, Darkest Hour, which I really like a lot, several people like get up to go and get a beer and stuff. It's not even just this concert, it is literally every concert ever, to where it's like, God, they're playing a ballad, let me go up to get a beer, let me get up to go use the bathroom. It's just like, I've always felt like once you're in your seat, you stay there, kind of, because I'm like, I wouldn't even want to leave to get a drink, because it's like, I don't want to miss a moment of this. I want to take it all in. It's like you bought the ticket, you're there, you're strapped in for the ride, and that's where you're staying from start to finish. That's always been my idea. I'm not here to be like, and I would never be like, over there yelling at somebody, be like, why are you getting up during the ballad? But it's like, it's every show. Even like the beginning of Morgan Wallen's show, he opened with Sand in My Boots, and then people were like just, getting into their seats then, running late, or like some other people got up, they're like, oh, it's a ballad. It's just like, if you give it a chance, and it's like there's other people that would like to see that because they bought the ticket too. I'm talking about me, I wanted to see that, but it is what it is. But what was I gonna say? So that was a little bit frustrating because it was that, and then what is it? There's another one of his ballads I really like a lot too. Oh, even during Hell of a View, which is arguably, one of his biggest ballads, right now, or like, bigger ones, I would say, that's been released in the last several years. Anyway, that's from his last set of albums before this, is that I thought that was a really good song. And again, too, people going back and forth, I was like, Hell of a View might be like, probably is in my top 3, if not my, very favorite song of his. Like, I love that song. And then people, again, are like, oh, I guess I got to go get a beer. Like, even like the people that were, to the right of me, they left, and there was probably, they left early, and like Eric probably played for another like 45 minutes, I mean, maybe they had to, get up for work early the next day or something, or, I don't know, or something came up. I really don't know. But again, I've always just thought like once you're there and you stay for the whole thing because it's like I wouldn't want to leave and then miss something cool. So I don't know, but I was like to each their own, that's all you can really say about that. What else was I gonna say? He played just about everything I would have wanted to hear. Like I said, Heart on Fire would have been cool. I think Drowning Man would have been awesome as well. But besides those couple, I think he played just about everything. He played like 2.5 hours, so that was one of the longer concerts I've seen. And I know he does play long shows. Even on his last tour, well, not last tour, but I guess the last time he would have been in Green Bay, the Gather Again tour, he was playing like a 3 hour show, no openers and stuff. It's like, no, most people don't really do that. Kind of pretty much probably just like Paul McCartney, and maybe a couple others. I don't know if Springsteen has openers and stuff, but I know he plays very long shows too. But yeah, what else was I going to say? Yeah, overall, I thought that was a good show and I enjoyed it. It wasn't, my favorite ever. I wish I could have been in the pit for that. That would have been cool. But and it was just hard too because there were, of course there was, a couple of tall people in front of me in order to get any pictures and video. I have to hold like my camera up, like my phone up like this to get anything. It's just like, again, any concert ever, it's like I always end up behind a tall person. And again, I don't mean to rip on them. I'm just saying it's like it really does happen. That is another thing that happens every time, behind a tall person, no matter where I am. And it's like you almost get tempted to, like, when you have a chair, if you're not in like a pit, you almost get tempted to like stand on your chair, but obviously then other people would be getting pissed. But the other thing I think about this on the flip side that's funny to me is like, so I'm about 5'10", so I'm not a short guy, not a really, tall guy. But is I think about other people, that probably have gotten pissed at me for blocking their view because they're like, oh, tall guy in front of me. So I'm just like, well, I guess it goes both ways with that. So I guess I kind of just laugh to myself, kind of par for the course, I guess. But then I also think too, I'm like, well, I guess that's what the screens are for on the sides, But so it kind of comes in handy. But I thought I thought Eric's show was, cool, how he came out kind of with like the full choir and band and everything. And then it kind of just went down to him and his band. Then it went down to like him and like his main backup singer. And then it was just him for a bit. Then it kind of finished off with everybody brought back out. So anyway, it was kind of cool, and I really loved the opening with Hands of Time and how like the little like how the screen opens, like there's like a little door kind of like cut out of the screen. That's the best way I can describe that. Thought that was a cool opening. Yeah, pretty solid overall. I mean, I thought it would have been, the best if he would have just ended with like Springsteen, but then he played like some more songs after that. It was cool too because I know pretty much at most shows, like somebody throws him an American flag and stuff, but this show with it being Green Bay, somebody threw him a Packers American flag, so that was really cool. I'd not really seen one of those before. I shouldn't be surprised because like for speaking of merchandise, besides like, Kiss and other things, Kiss is the main one still that I think of with merchandising. Besides like Kiss, Star Wars and Marvel, like the Packers are just huge, like the amount of items they have. I've not compared it to, every like pro team and stuff, but they do very well with the variety of products and, the outside of the box kind of ideas with these things. So anyway, a Packer American flag did not surprise me, but it was kind of cool to see. And then him wearing around his neck and then had the Go Pack Go chant, as he kind of played the chords to Springsteen. So, I mean, there's videos of this already, but it was a cool moment, It's literally every country show there, though, that they do start the Go Pack Go chant. I mean, it's like, it is fun, but it's just like, does everything have to be, like sports, football related every time? Like, I do like the Packers and I'm a fan of them, but it's just like, it's literally every moment towards like, can we just, focus on the music a little bit more? That's what I feel like. Again, that's, a nitpick. But overall, I would see Eric again, not the best show I've ever seen, not the worst show. I thought it was, pretty solid. I'm sure it will be a while before I see him again because, try to kind of switch things up and whatever, but I'm not worried because, he plays a good amount of shows and, I'm sure there will be a market that I'll have a chance to see him in, if Green Bay or Milwaukee. So I enjoyed that a lot. Oh, and I thought it was cool as another side note was that He had one of his sons there, so that was really cool because he, I guess his son had seen like the show like the weekend before in like Pittsburgh or something, and then he's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about seeing the show in Milwaukee." Then Eric's like, "Well, you don't want to miss Green Bay." So anyway, it was very cool, and he, spoke very highly of Green Bay, and I like that a lot. I've always loved the city as well, and I still do. And he said he's like these kind of people remind him of where he grew up in, his small town in North Carolina. So that was really cool. And it is interesting for Green Bay because it's like, it is the smallest NFL city, and I think it has like, 100,000 something people. But it's not like small. I mean, 100,000 is still, pretty good. I mean, and even like Lambeau itself, it's like that would, hold like, my whole town could fit in that like, 4 times over like population. But so that's crazy to think about. But I do like that Green Bay, like does have a fair amount of people, but yet it doesn't feel like it at the same point because it has, the Midwest nice and small town feel, but yet there's a lot of, things here. It's like, or we have a stadium or a great arena and, people will still play here. So it's like, it's a good balance of both. And I really like that a lot. Anyway, enough about Green Bay. My next show that I saw was on October 5th at the Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee. I finally saw The Sandman, my boy Adam Sandler. I've been a big fan of him for a long time. I didn't really know very much about his stand-up, probably until like the last like few years. I honestly didn't know he did stand-up at all. I always thought he just did, like Saturday Night Live and then he did movies. That was what I thought he did, but I did not realize that he started off as a stand-up. It's interesting that, he did both of those because there are some comedians that like they're only kind of known for one thing. There are some comedians that are kind of more of just like a comedic actor. Maybe they do the skits and that's kind of it. And, and they don't do stand up at all. Or there's some that like just do stand up and podcasts, and they're doing some movies and shows, but not as much. Those are kind of on the back burner. So it's interesting to see like the variety of, the comedians, of how different they are in the art form itself. I consider a comedian, honestly, like, someone who is a little bit more well-rounded, who it's like can do stand-up, can, kill in a show, can do sketches. I like all types. Like even example, like Will Ferrell, he's one of my favorites, but, he's never done stand-up. The only kind of stand-up thing he ever really did that I know of, was the You're Welcome America, the George Bush thing he did for HBO. But besides that, to my knowledge, he never really did stand up. But again, too, it's like it doesn't work for everyone like that. So it's been kind of interesting to learn that, Adam's style, and actually really a lot of his style is more kind of just like comedic songs. So maybe not on the level of like Steel Panther funny, but like kind of more in that vein. And I thought it was very fun. I kind of, was running a bit later than I wanted to, was kind of cutting it close with that for getting to the show, kind of got a late start, but it all worked out. He had like a couple of other openers that I must have just missed, like when I was getting to my seat, but I never caught their names. But the main ones that I wanted to see, I was able to see of the comedians opening for him. So he had Nick Swardson, who I really wanted to see. He opened for him, and I thought he was decent. Believe I watched Nick's latest special. I think it's on Prime and a couple other things. A Make Joke from Face, and I thought that was decent. I really always liked him in the movies he's done with Adam. A really funny, talented guy and interesting on podcasts. Like him a lot. And then Rob Schneider was the other special guest. I would have preferred if it would have been David Spade, but I thought Rob was okay. I thought he was decent. So it was kind of cool. I really do like that, Adam brings his friends along, not only in, the movies and shows that he does, but that even, doing the road, because there were, pictures from over the years of like, of kind of all the guys together. They'd have like, Norm would be with them or, Kevin James, and kind of made it interesting. Like I didn't know exactly, who was going to pop up or not. Again, I would have preferred David Spade, but I was not mad with who I got. Then Adam came on and I thought it was a solid show. I didn't, get the best ticket for it. I was going to get one on the floor, but it would have been $100 more than what I paid. So anyway, I was kind of like up in sort of like the corner over here, but it was still a very good view. And I liked the Pfizer Forum a lot. And I really liked that the concourses were really big and cleared out. And I was out of there after the show finished within like 5 minutes and then out the door and stuff. And that was including like buying a shirt and poster. So I thought that was great. Very good staff and stuff. People ended up sitting in my seat and stuff, but I kind of did the math though when I was getting there that like, they must have just shifted down so they all could be together. So I ended up, only kind of being like a third seat in on the row. I was supposed to be like 6 seats in or something, but I'm like, well, I'm not going to fight with everybody. So that is kind of an interesting thing that does happen at shows sometimes, or at least it has to me, of like, well, my seat's taken. I'm like, kind of try to figure that out, or be like, if somebody does come for the specific seat I'm sitting in, be like, well, they are in mine, so we kind of got to figure this out. But that hasn't happened like that, to where I've had to be like, wait, let me sort this out. They're in my spot. Anyway, that hasn't really happened like that. But anyway, thought it was a solid show. I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was cool that, he did, a new set clearly, like pretty much every comedy show is, but I also did like that he kind of pulled out some good, like, old bits. Like, I really like that he did the one song, Scary Shit Is Coming. I really liked that a lot. That was funny and kind of, very fitting for being a little bit before Halloween and stuff. So I liked that a lot. I remembered seeing that song in his Love You special, so that was cool to see that live. Then Here Comes the Comedy. That was a really good song. I enjoyed that. That was also from Love You. And then I thought it was awesome that he did the Farley tribute. I did not know if he did that at every show or not, but maybe that's kind of like his version of like Bert Kreischer's The Machine story. What I mean by that is like kind of like a staple thing you do in every one of your shows. So maybe that's what that is for Adam. I would love to see the Hanukkah song live someday. That's kind of my bucket list thing if I ever get an opportunity to see him live again. And I just kind of jumped on it to go just because, like, again, he was, been on my list and I've, loved him for a long time and I still do. And he kind of only tours every like few years. It seems like he'll like kind of go out like sporadically or be like, hey, let's do this again. And it's like, what? Because I didn't even really pay attention to that he, toured and stuff until like after the pandemic, probably like maybe 2022, that he went out and did some dates. Or maybe it was 2023. Anyway, I didn't know that. But backtracking to what I was saying before is I thought it was awesome, the Farley tribute. I've always loved Chris Farley a lot. I still do. Gone way too soon, and it's just, just makes me think like what he could have been, because I still consider him one of the greats of the stuff that he did on SNL and the, movies he was in, that he is still one of the greats. But even like what body of work he could have had, or what he would be like today if he was still around. So I thought that was awesome that Adam played that tribute for him. And I kind of had tears in my eyes during that. And it was just real special. Again, I've heard the song before and I've seen it before from his 100% Fresh special. But again, I didn't know if he would play that live or not. So that's why I kind of didn't look a lot into Adam's show, like the specifics, because I like to be surprised. So that was kind of why I left that out of the equation. But I thought it was really cool. And also, too, with being in Wisconsin, it was fitting because Chris was from Madison, I believe. Yeah, he was from Madison. So it was kind of cool to be in his, home state and stuff. And yeah, it meant a lot. And it was cool seeing the arena lit up for that, and very special. And I really appreciate that Adam, and I think a lot of these other comedians, that I see them really caring about their friends and being genuine with that. And whether it be like bringing them along on the road, doing movies with them or podcasts, or, even just like promoting their projects and stuff. Like, I see it as like a real friendship, and I really enjoy that a lot, because that resonates with me, because it's just like, whenever I see my friends or other people that my friends or family, members that I, care about, and see them doing, really great things, I would love to put a spotlight on that too. And I want to celebrate them for the good things that they do and what they've accomplished. And I think that's really cool that so much of that community is doing that. That's, why I love comedy and podcasts, and I think funny is funny. And I love that they just go back and forth and just, like talk shit to each other. But, it's all with love though, and I don't think anything is, really safe in comedy. Like, there are little things here and there, but, I think overall, just humor brings us together. And so glad that, so many of us share that together. Um, anyway, glad to have seen Adam, and I hope to be able to see him again. So that was a big moment to be able to see him finally. And then that brings me to the last show of the year. I did, my previous episode was, talking about this, whole kind of concert and stuff itself, so I'll be like a little bit more brief. Anyway, then my last show of the year on November 13th, I saw Tom Segura at the Widener Center in Green Bay on his Come Together tour. He had Kirk Fox opening. Kirk Fox, turns out he has been in a lot more things than I realized. I'd only seen him in the Bad Thoughts series, but I didn't know that he was in Parks and Rec and, a bunch of other stuff. I've only seen clips of Park and Rec, to be honest. But anyway, thought he was decent. Again, couldn't hear him very well just because kind of the guy behind me was being a little bit disruptive and things. But it worked out that he kind of just got pissed and left before Tom went on. I thought, Tom's set was solid. I thought it was kind of a different outfit choice that he had because he had kind of like a brown like sweater and stuff. But I do like that Tom switches it up. I mean, at least he has the ability to, because Bert can't, because it's just like can just take off a shirt and that's about it. Like maybe change the shirt that you do, but it's pretty much just like shirtless guy and jeans, and a beer in his hand. Maybe he has a fedora on, maybe he doesn't, But anyway, it's nice that I see, kind of Tom switching it up and stuff. And again, I thought it was, another pretty solid hour. I think I do like the previous hour of his that I saw a little bit better. But again, I might, like some things better once I see them polished up a bit more in when it's packaged for the teacher special that comes out on Christmas Eve. So I guess we'll see to kind of compare and contrast, and because again too, it's like some of these, comedy shows, there are certain things that, really stick out to you. Then there's certain things that you like totally forget about this bit, or, maybe they performed it a little bit better in the special than when you saw them live, or maybe vice versa. Maybe they didn't perform it as well in the special, in your opinion. But anyway, I am, still excited to see that again. It had been over 3 years, a little bit over 3 years since I'd seen Tom. So it was, nice to see him again. And I also kind of jumped on it too, besides him being one of my favorite comedians, probably not going to tour for a while. So I didn't know if I would be able to get an opportunity to see him, anytime the next like 5 years. So I was like, well, maybe if it's quite a while after that, until I see him, I would be satisfied with this set. I've seen him on 2 really good, tours. So I'll be happy with that. Enjoy his comedy a lot. So anyway, there pretty much does it. Those were the 6 shows that I went to in 2025. The previous year, I think I went to about 9, really probably about 7 of them, but because there was a festival and stuff for that year, but I do count each day as like a separate concert kind of, and it was like a 3-day thing. Anyway, that was a 2024 thing. But this year, yeah, 6 shows. So it was kind of more, picky choosy, and there were kind of bigger gaps in these shows, because it's kind of interesting to where it always seems to happen like that for me a lot, to where it's like I won't see, a concert for like, let's say 3 or 4 months, but then I'll have, one show, and then there will be another show like a week or 10 days later. And that's what happened with like Eric Church and Adam Sandler. Those were like 10 days apart. And Katy Perry and the Pretty Reckless were like, a week or 8 days or something apart, So that kind of seems to happen a lot like that, but at least it's not as much as 2022 for me, because that was crazy, because I think I went to like 16 shows that year or something. I'll have to double check in my book here to see if that's right. But because at that point, when there's just so many shows, and especially the distances that I have to travel, and then the money being put into that, is that although I am glad to see everyone that I have seen, it kind of feels like a little bit overwhelming and more of a job at that rate. This last year was much of a better balance of of making it more of a bigger event, because I see that for other people too that are kind of more casual concert goers, that they'll be like real, excited to, go see somebody, because for some of these people, it's like, maybe Adam Sandler was the only show they saw the whole year, or they haven't seen one in several years, or, maybe they only have a couple. But I felt like with having 6, really kind of 5, I say, because like the Cheeseburger Picnic, I do count as a show, because there was even like a Q&A thing at the college I went to before, and I count that in here too. I don't know, of like, it was nice to just kind of more have a handful, just because it's hard, because like there were so many things I said no to, because like realistically, it's like I would love to have seen, everybody that I wanted to. Like, I could have seen Def Leppard again this summer, and there were like a couple of other artists that I could have seen, but I was kind of like, well, or or I could have seen Jason Aldean in September, but I was like, well, I already have the Eric Church show, then to run there, then to run back a couple weeks later. So it all kind of, you know, uh, goes into account of how I make my choices. Again, it's not an exact science, and um, it's up to me ultimately. Nobody's ever like gun to my head like you either have to, buy these tickets or you don't, or like be like, oh, you idiot, why are you spending money on these tickets? But it's just what I like to do and I enjoy. And yeah, anyway, so that's a little recap of the 2025 concerts. Did any of you guys see shows this year? Do you have a favorite concert that you saw? What do you have coming up for next year? Were there any shows that you regret getting tickets for? Let me know in the comments. And I'm gonna, try to keep making more episodes here and kind of get back on the bandwagon. And maybe eventually I'll have like a full breakdown one day of, kind of all the shows I went to. I don't know how long that episode would be, but it would be quite an undertaking. I would really love to do it kind of like concert by concert, but again, too, it's like there's a lot here because as to date, I've seen 63 shows. So that's, concerts and stand-up shows. And there's, I think, one Q&A session, but I count that as a live show because it was pretty funny too, some of it. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts and looking forward to a great, great couple of shows in 2026. And I'm sure I'll end up going to, more than that, but that's just what I have tickets for so far. But yeah, stick along for the ride.